How was SEACON? SEACON was awesome, right? So someone suggested, actually, so Barry was basically the kind of the big finish. So I am what's called the lights up music. So it's a do, 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 do. So you will just kind of start drifting out now towards beer, and I'll just chat for a bit, and that's fine. So I want to talk about swarming. Swarming, it was started as a tongue-in-cheek kind of thing back end of last year. I was getting really cross with, and continue to get really cross with, the kind of guff that comes out of the scaling methods that say, you know, this thing will change your life and will be amazing and everything's going to be wonderful, and I'm not entirely sure I buy that. And so I suggested an acronym of my own, swarming, scaling without a religious methodology, although of course the A should be a little a, because your vowels should be small in a methodology. Catherine Kirk's name is up there as well, because I put this talk together with her about a year, or beginning of this year. And she's got this huge, huge brain, and we've come from very different places. So theologically, I'm a Christian and she's a Buddhist, and we both kind of came to that in later life, so we didn't grow up in those ways, so we've kind of argued ourselves into it. And so we've got some interesting perspectives, and we talk a lot and spend a lot of time. So this is a short version of that talk. So what I typically do is I start and explain what I've seen and sort of some phenomenology stuff and what I'm seeing out there. And then there's an explanation in the middle of why this happens, and then the last part is what to do about it. So I'm going to be skipping the why this happens. They'll have like a little square that just says a miracle occurs. Okay, so we're going to go with that. So, okay, let's start at the beginning. So how do I do work? I'm a consultant. I'm independent. I've been an independent consultant for about 6 years now. And I'm very lucky. Most of my work is inbound. And what happens is people contact me and they say, hi, Dan, please help us. And I get all kinds of different people that contact me. So I get business stakeholders, commercial people, and they contact me and they say, please help us. They say, IT is so slow to deliver. And I go, really? They go, yeah. They're expensive and they're poor value. And so when you start scratching the surface of that, you discover that all of these business functions in these big companies have set up their own kind of shadow IT functions, which is basically a bunch of people locally that do exactly what big IT should be doing, but it gets done. And they say things like, we get surprises, and we don't like surprises. And by surprises, they mean like typically expensive, embarrassing surprises, right? So things blowing up in production. The discovery that even with $200 and 2 hours or whatever, you still can't actually sign up to the product you're selling. That kind of stuff, right? Surprises. And then they say that we've got this PMO thing, right? This kind of governance function, and they give us information, but it's usually too late, right? So even when we're getting this management information, it's not really helping us. And I go, oh, we should chat. And then the phone rings, and it's some developers, and they say, we know we're slow. And I say, well, that's nice. You know, self-awareness, we like that, it's good. And they say, we're working really hard. And they haven't noticed this like false dichotomy that working really hard is probably why you're going slow. You know, this massive amount of work in process and huge amount of context switching and all that is why they're going slow. And they just think if we just worked harder and longer hours, we'd be fine. And they say things like, the business doesn't trust us. So, you know, this is typically based on like 40-odd years of successive crushing disappointments. And, you know, you can see where they're coming from. And then they talk about PMO as well. They say, PMO micromanages us. You know, they're in everything, and they want reports, and they want reports about reports, and we're stuck doing that. And then they go, of course, it's not us. It's infrastructure. Infrastructure's a bottleneck. You know, we can't get hold of servers. It takes 6 weeks to punch a hole in the firewall. Oh, my God, infrastructure's really... And they say, and the other thing is our landscape isn't getting any less complicated. Right, so our landscape is so complicated and getting more complicated every year. Every time I blink, Amazon has just released another 17 services to do with like AI and machine learning over blockchain or something. And I'm like, yeah, maybe I can help you with, and then suddenly I get an email from the PMO and the change groups, and they say, Dan, I wonder if you can help us. They say, IT keep blowing their estimates. They don't stick to a plan. I'm like, yeah, that sounds familiar. And they say, how can we possibly govern and report if they're just making stuff up? And that's just the activity, right? If I look at what it is they're doing, I can't even tell if what they're doing is aligned with what we're supposed to be doing. Back to Barry's strategy stuff again. I don't actually know if they know that what they're doing is aligned with our strategy, and anyway, how could I? Oh, hang on, there goes the phone, it's infrastructure. And they go, yeah. And they say, and they're lovely infrastructure people, Go hug infrastructure people. They say, we want to help, but these development teams won't tell us what they need. And they say, and what's more, our procurement cycle is annual, right? So we need to know ahead of time. And we go, okay, yep. And so they say, yeah, what are we all doing so wrong? And this is the easy bit. So I'm going to give you some free consulting now. Okay, so this is how mostly the first conversation goes. I say, this is easy. You're aiming at the wrong target. Okay, you're aiming at the wrong target. Stop doing that. And they say, well, what do you mean we're aiming at the wrong target? And I say, well, so you've got this model in your organization called cost accounting. And cost accounting actually started with the Industrial Revolution, but modern cost accounting started in probably the 1950s. And again, it goes back to the point in time when organizations got big enough that you couldn't tell what was going on. When an organization is small enough that I can see what's going on, it's pretty easy. I can kind of, am I making enough widgets? Am I selling enough widgets? Have I found the right market for my widgets? I can answer those questions. Once I've got this huge sales operation and marketing operation and engineering function and fulfillment's over there and shipping's over here, it's really hard to see what's going on. And this was before we had computers and things that could tell us that. So we're kind of saying, given this really big organization, how can we reason about this organization? And cost accounting was the model, the dominant model that emerged in the West. Amusingly, and this is a slightly old statistic, it's a few years old now, but roughly, in the West, something like 80 to 85% of large organizations use cost accounting as their primary governance model. In Japan, it's about, have a guess, the percentage. About 14, 15. So about 6 out of every 7 companies don't do this. Okay, so it's a weird quirk, but there you go. So the first thing is how we actually structure the organization. So we structure the organization, we think of cost centers and profit centers. So and the idea is that a profit center is your sales division and they make money, so I want them to make more money, and pretty much everyone else is a cost center. So engineering is a cost center, manufacturing is a cost center, fulfillment is a cost center, support is a cost center, that's a big cost center. So they need to drive their costs down. And so that's the model. And so how do we incentivize these cost and profit centers? There's no connection between these, they're just separate silos, okay? Typically going up to separate VPs or execs or whatever. So what we have is local performance targets. Manufacturing has productivity targets, and sales has sales targets and sales commissions and all of that. And there was a major car manufacturer some years ago, and they had their productivity targets in their factories, and they were shooting their productivity targets. It was brilliant. They were completely exceeding them, and manufacturing all these cars. And they made so many cars that they ran out of warehouse space. And when you run out of warehouse space, you go into hangars, like proper aircraft hangars. They filled all those up. And now they're building cars that are sitting in fields. Now, the thing about cars sitting in fields is weather, okay? And so, but it didn't matter because they're blowing their productivity targets out of the water. The problem was there was no connection to, I don't know, sales targets, right? So no one was actually buying all the cars they were producing, and all of the manufacturing teams were getting their bonuses. Brilliant. So what do we measure? What do we reward here? We care about measuring busyness. We care about measuring effort, activity. Okay, busier is better. Okay, I want to see people working long hours. I've got a knowledge working, to use that term that's been used a few times today, a knowledge working company I'm working with at the moment, where their programmers, their software engineers, click in, tap in and tap out. They sign in and sign out. So like, I want to know when you come in, when you're sitting at your desk, and when you're not sitting at your desk. And I'm like, that's not how that kind of work works. And I say, so they say, well, that's great, but what should we be doing? I say, well, the thing you should be doing is a thing called throughput accounting. Throughput accounting, made famous, I guess, by Ellie Goldratt in The Goal. So The Goal is about 2 things. A fantastic book, go read The Goal. It's about 2 things. It's about a model called theory of constraints, which is a way of looking at how work moves through an organization, how value is added. And it's also about a model called throughput accounting, which is what's the finance model that sits alongside of that. And throughput accounting is so easy, I can explain it to you in like 20 seconds. There are 3 numbers, okay? The first number is inventory. That is, how much have we spent on stuff we're going to sell, or stuff we're going to turn into products, okay? Throughput is how much money, so these are all money amounts, how much money have we made selling the stuff that we've made out of that inventory? And operating cost, which is how much does it cost us to turn inventory into throughput? That's the whole of throughput accounting. You're welcome. Okay. So, and what's really fun is all of these standard accounting numbers, they're called GARP, Generally Accepted Accounting Practice. So all of the GARP numbers like EBITDA and all the other things that sound like Daleks, you can derive all of those from these three numbers. Okay, so a super easy way to manage your organization that practically no one's doing, which is a shame. And they say, well, how's that different? And I say, well, the whole organization creates value. That's the first thing, right? It's a holistic thing. There's no cost centers and profit centers. What do you think the salespeople are selling? They're selling the product that was built by the engineers or the programmers or whoever it is, the machine room. A bunch of people built stuff. We're selling that stuff. That stuff might be knowledge stuff, product stuff. It might be physical stuff. That's what we're selling. Like saying that the salespeople make profit is like seeing the smoke coming out of an exhaust pipe on a car and going, well, clearly the exhaust pipe is creating the smoke. No, the exhaust pipe is where you notice the smoke. The smoke's being created elsewhere. Yeah. So it's a holistic thing. So how do we incentivize in a holistic world then? Well, incentivizing there is about identifying and resolving bottlenecks. Don Reinertsen has this lovely phrase, you don't measure the workers, you measure the work items. Okay, measuring workers is a red herring. So we want to measure work items flowing through a system. And what are our metrics there? The only game in town is lead time and throughput. Okay, lead time, how long does it take stuff to happen? Throughput, how much stuff are you getting to happen in per unit time? So lead time, I define lead time as the wall clock time from commitment to thank you. So I say, you have a need, and I agree that I'm going to meet that need, and I do some work, and here, I made you a thing, and you say, thank you, brilliant, right? Or I make you a thing, and I show you it, and you go, that sucks. You go, well, we haven't got to thank you yet, so I need to do some more work. So lead time quite conveniently captures things like rework, things like getting it wrong and having to iterate and eventually getting it right, because no one said thank you yet. Okay, so lead time, commitment to thank you. And they say, oh, right, we get it. And I go, you're welcome, free consulting. And they say, lean, agile, TM will save us. And I go, oh, crap. I'll speak to you in about 18 months. And they go, okay, and off they go, and lean, agile will save us. And they've all got this idea. They're going to go and buy themselves a few kilos of lean, agile. And has anyone seen the play Waiting for Godot? Just wonderful. Samuel Beckett, 1950s. So it's a tragicomedy of these two characters, Vladimir and Estragon, and they're waiting for their friend Godot. And all we know about Godot is he's going to make everything better. Okay? Godot's going to come along, and when Godot gets here, we know it's rubbish now, we know things suck for now, but when Godot gets here, it's going to be so much better. Spoiler, he doesn't turn up. Go and see it anyway, it's brilliant, but he doesn't arrive. Oh no! And it's the dialogue between these two characters of the human condition, and it is wonderful. But I get this image when people go, Safe's going to save us, Less is going to save us. Let's go agile ourselves up. Let's go and buy a framework. Really? No. No, I can tell you how it ends. How it ends is about a year and a half later, I get a call. I go, oh, hello, how are you? Well, I don't. I say, look, I'm really sorry. I don't want to do the told you so thing, but you're a little bit late, actually. And the business says, Agile didn't save us, or whatever it was those IT folks were doing. And they're agiling and release training or whatever they were doing, it was rubbish. It didn't work. We poured loads of money in, loads of training, loads of consultants. It's a really good funds transfer exercise from you to some consultants. That's what it mostly is. And then the programmers, bless them, they say, it didn't save us. They say, it's the same old command and control structures, just different labels. All of our project managers went on a 2-day residential class and came back as Scrum Masters, and our business analysts went on a different 2-day residential class and came back as product owners, and same old, same old. And the PMO, bless them, they're going, people are even more reluctant to give estimates now. They've got their own hashtag. Right? They go, we don't, nope, we're agile. We have workshops about not giving estimates. So there, oh no. And when will this be done? We don't do dates. Oh God, get off my lawn. Stop spending my money. And then infrastructure, of course, they say things like, now they're even less likely to know what they want. Right? They keep changing their minds even more. And what they're all really saying is this. They're all really saying that thing we tried was working okay for a bit, and then it just sort of stopped working. Right? So how do we always end up here? That's really annoying, yeah? And it turns out how we always end up here is exactly what a bunch of Buddhist monks and nuns have been noodling about for about 2,500 years. And they've gotten quite good at this, I discovered, talking to Catherine. And essentially, some things are inevitable, okay? So, time passing. Time passing is inevitable. Anyone recognize this? This is possibly the best game ever. This is The Hobbit. The Hobbit's an adventure game. And you type in things like Go North or Open Chest or whatever. And then you bump into characters like Thorin. And it's lovely because then if you wait, it says Thorin waits, which is, he doesn't just ditch you and wander off. He waits with you, which is quite nice. Time passes. Because time passes, things atrophy. So even if you've got something that is working now, it will eventually cease to work. It'll degrade, it will dysfunction, it will eventually just expire. And that's just the nature of stuff, said these monks. And people went, oh yeah, I guess that's kind of the nature of stuff. So I won't go deep into that today, but it is just the nature of stuff. And what that means is that package methods don't last, because nothing lasts, and because package methods can't last, okay? Including the nice ones, right? Agile fluency, heart of Agile, modern Agile, all these lovely, huggy, Alistair Cockburn type wonderful. I'm a big fan of Alistair Cockburn and Josh Koryevsky, and they're just lovely, lovely, smart human beings. And their thing won't last because life happens, time passes. So we need to think about that. Oh no, doom and gloom. It's okay. It's okay because I've been noodling on this too. Scaling without a religious methodology. So as I said, this started as a tongue-in-cheek acronym. There were several variants of the R before I got to religious, but I decided to settle on that. Before I go any further, I want to mention religion. I use a very specific definition of religion here. So when I talk about religion, I'm talking about the structures, the constraints, the rituals that we accrete around some kernel of faith, right? Because we're terrified of uncertainty. So we need answers. We don't like uncertainty. And that kernel of faith might be well-founded or badly founded. You can have blind faith and you can have evidence-based faith, right? So even if you have evidence-based faith and you've got a reasonable grounds to start with, what happens is we start to accrete rules and structures and stuff. So all of the major religions, when you look at them, they all have stuff you don't know, and in fact, stuff you can't know. So in Buddhism, you have koans, and a koan is an unanswerable question. Oh, no, that sucks. In Christianity, you have these things called mysteries, and mysteries are unknowable. So like, here's one. Is God one thing or three things? And it turns out the answer is yes, right? And it split the early church, and when you have a group of people that split, and you get like little subgroups, what you do after you split is you kill each other. Because even though you were sworn blood brothers and sisters and whatever just before the split, now you're sworn mortal enemies. Because one thing, three things, oh, we should kill each other, okay? And so that's not good. And there's a bunch of reasons for this that, again, that's a talk for another day. But religion then is our need to put structure and answers where there is uncertainty rather than dancing with that uncertainty. And this is a lot of the problem. So here's what I know. Here's what I know is this, is that in order for you to do any kind of delivery at scale, there's a bunch of things you're going to need. Okay, so I think of these as table stakes, okay? This is necessary but not sufficient criteria. It's what we're going to need to even get out the gate. As Barry was saying, start where you are. I love the joke that says, if I were going to Dublin, I wouldn't start from here, all right? So, okay, maybe we could start from slightly closer to Dublin. That might be useful. So, table stakes, I think of this as a gap analysis tool. It's an overlay that I can look at my current world and say, which of these things am I missing? Because that's probably the stuff to go after first, okay? First thing we're going to need is we're going to know new stuff, right? And to Barry's point and the whole theme of unlearning, one part of education is the flat denial that I don't currently know all the answers. Right, so you're going to teach me this thing about throughput accounting, but I know how the money works. And by the way, I became very senior in this organization by being better at the horse trading and budget game than you, and now you're telling me there's going to be a different game. How can I know I'm going to be that good at the new game? I'm going to stick with my old game. I like my old game. So there's a lot of resistance to education. But we're going to need education. The next thing we're going to need is practice. There's no point me telling you about scuba diving. You have to actually get under the water, and then you go, oh, that was really weird and magical, and I thought I was going to die, right, or something. Or skydiving. You can read books about skydiving, but it doesn't mean anything until you get in a plane and jump out and you go, oh, man, that was really weird and magical, and I thought I was going to die. And that's basically your response to anything new when you do it experientially. So we need to practice, and practice takes time. So that means we can't go Agile on Monday. That's not going to happen. And even if we do decide to go Agile on Monday, we've got the whole technology adoption curve, the crossing the chasm model, where out of any population, maybe 4 or 5% of that population is really up for this. So that's where you're going to get that change. And then they're going to be your pioneers, and you're going to get your early adopters and all of that shenanigans. So it's going to take time. Okay? If we don't have time, this won't work. Okay? Sorry. We're going to need time. And because we're going to need time, and time is money, we're going to need money. Okay? We need investment. We need serious thinking. We need serious investment. We need people to understand that in order to save money, we need to spend money, etc. And that means that unless it's our company, we're going to need influence. Okay? We need to be able to communicate with people outside of our world. And so, along with, and influence is causing behavior change outside of your immediate area. So influence might be across to my peers, it might be up and down the management hierarchy, but that influence is going to need comms. All right, so I need communications. And that means I need to think about my audience. There's a lovely Swedish poem that I take a line out of. It says, when you're talking to farmers, use farmers' words. Use the language of farmers. I love that. Right? And it also says, when you're speaking to educated people, use Latin, which I quite like as well. When you're talking to farmers, use farmers' words. When you're talking to finance people, right, finance people think in terms of risk and opportunity cost and return on capital and risk-adjusted return on capital. And what they don't think about is story points and burn up and burn down and sprint commitments and, oh man, they're just going like glaze, right? When will I have it? We're Agile. Okay, I'm going to leave something better than we're Agile. Okay, what we'll do then is we'll run a few sprints, and we'll measure our velocity in those sprints, and we'll project that velocity over time. When am I going to get it? No estimates? No? So, and we end up just completely talking across each other. We need to figure that out. External help. There you go, that's me selling. You're welcome. No, external help. This is, the chances are, right, because you're in your own bubble, you've built a very effective echo chamber in the organization, we're going to need to upset the balance of that echo chamber. That doesn't necessarily mean hire consultants, although here I am. For instance, one thing I've seen work really well is peer groups across different companies. So if you're a bank and you're on this journey, go talk to other banks on this journey. Ideally, go talk to other banks further on this journey than you. Go talk to ING, because they've spent like about 7 or 8 years getting quite good at this. And for the first couple of years, they sucked at it. Because the first couple of years you try anything like this, you suck at it. And they've gotten better at it. If you're a bank and you're about the same shape as ING was, they're probably friendly people to talk to. Okay? Likewise, telcos, likewise, retail, likewise, finance. Whoever you might be, there are other people out there like you. Okay? So go make friends. You're going to need some external help. And the other thing you're going to need, and we've talked about this quite a bit today, is leadership. There's 3 things I want to mention about leadership briefly. And remember, this is table stakes. We haven't started doing anything yet. This is just my overlay to say, do we think we're in the right shape? And there's often a bunch of work to get to ready. Yeah. So the first thing I need about my leadership is I need it to be consistent. One of my favorite recent statistics is the average half-life of a CIO. Right, so that is this. If I get a room with 100 CIOs in, no, there's so many ways I could finish that sentence. If I get a room with 100 CIOs in, how long in the future will half of them have changed jobs? 18 months, a year? Yes, it's 18 months. 18 months and falling, right? 18 months. Which means, like, this is a 3 to 5 year play minimum. Right? If you're going to do anything significant, you're looking at 3 to 5 years in order to start to move that that super tanker of an organization around. And it does accelerate. It starts really slow, and once it's going, it becomes a juggernaut. You're changing a system. You're changing a stable, resilient system, which is a thing of joy once it's motoring in the right direction. But that means that then if a year and a half in, a new CIO rolls in, or CEO, or whoever, some head of whatever you're trying to get changed, rolls in and says, well, we're going to do things my way with my new team that I'm bringing from my old place, or whatever it might be, okay, that can be challenging. The second thing we need about the leadership is for them to be invested. What does that mean? That means this is how we do work. This thing we're moving towards, we're iterating towards, is how we do work. It's not a hobby project on the side. So here's a clue. If you have a thing called a transformation program that's funded alongside all the other programs, like the new product program and the cleaning up the data center program, you're doing it wrong. Okay? It's not a thing that goes alongside of stuff. It's a thing that underpins all the things. Okay? Now, again, as I said, you won't start all of this at the same time to the same extent everywhere, but you will eventually bring all of it on that journey. Okay? And your leadership up and down the organization needs to be aware that this is how we're doing things. And if they're not committed and invested in that way, it's a hobby. It's an interesting thing that happens at the sides, and it will eventually fail. And the third thing, which kind of speaks to those first two, is we want resilient leadership. John Smart earlier was talking about David Marquet's leader-leader model. So the idea with leader-leader is up and down the organization, people say, I intend to do X rather than may I do X. And Marquet has this lovely phrase. He says, you move the authority to the information, you don't move the information to the authority. So what we normally have is senior, pointy-head people, and we bring the information to them, and they make sage judgments for us, which sucks on many levels. Firstly, the information they're getting has been transformed a number of different times before it even gets to them. So they're getting really, really badly corrupted information. And they're also a massive decision-making bottleneck. I'm sitting next to someone, and they ask me for help, and I'm like, well, you're on a different project. So that means I need to get a cross-project funding code in order to spend some time with you. So I need to go up to my boss's boss across, and they're going to have meetings all the way up and all the way down. And by the time we've done that, it didn't matter. Right? Or I could just help you out for a couple of hours because I'm nice. Yeah? Again, back to cost accounting. So resilient leadership is this. Once we get this mentality of leader-leader, once we have leaders up and down the organization, we build a much more resilient structure for when the new CIO or CEO does come rolling in. Because now they join the organization and the existing folks say, glad you're here, this is how we're doing things. And most C-suite folks aren't used to hearing that. And I'll be honest, I've spoken to quite a few of them, and when they do hear it, they're delighted. Right? You'd think they're threatened or they're whatever. Mostly they're delighted. They're like, well, look, I'm joining a successful organization, and you folks seem to know what you're doing and want to continue doing it. That's a good organization to join. Usually they join an organization and everyone's going, oh my God, like that. And so when they say, do you know what, we've got this, and here's some evidence that we've got this, that's quite an interesting place for them to come into. So there's my table stakes. The transformation itself. As Barry says, this is the last transformation, right? You're never done with this. It's continuing. You're never going to be done. It's based on really simple principles. The first principle is this. People are basically good. We choose to believe that people are basically good. Edwards Deming said, people want to do good work. They want to do excellent work. They want to be in an environment where they can do that. So the job of management is to create an environment in which people can do excellent work, as opposed to his peers who are saying people are basically lazy and stupid, and so we need to give them standard work and then police them. People are basically good. Virginia Satir calls it the principle of positive intent. Right? Everyone's trying to help. Okay? Everyone's trying to help. So even if someone is doing something that looks really toxic or horrible or whatever, from their perspective, they think they're helping. So a really useful empathy exercise is to think to yourself, what would have to be true for me such that I thought that behavior was helping? So for instance, we're trying to do some stuff and some people are trying to sabotage it or introduce their own thing. And you think, wow, they're trying to sabotage me and introduce their own thing. Evil, nasty people. No. People trying to help. right, what must be true then that this sabotaging behavior, they think that's helpful? And maybe what they're thinking is, it's fine, and if you come in with your thing, you'll break it, and it's fine, right? And so don't come in and break it. So actually, from their perspective, they're helping. They're trying to stop crazy old me from coming in and messing things up. Yeah. So, so everyone's trying to help. Second principle, all we care about is sustainable flow of value. Okay? Flow implies working in small chunks. You can't flow massive, massive things. Sustainable implies it's the whole system. It's a holistic thing. So a sustainable flow of value involves human beings. It involves human beings being happy in their work and fulfilled in their work and all of that stuff. Otherwise, you don't have a sustainable system. In order to build a sustainable flow of value, we need to be able to measure a sustainable flow of value, and so we're going to need some new tricks. Okay? We need new metrics, we need new techniques. That's okay. We learned the old ones, we can learn some new ones. And the third simple principle is theory of constraints, which is a particular flavor of lean operations that I find is super accessible, is very actionable, and is pretty easy to learn and to practice. Okay? One specific piece of advice I will give, I don't generally give specific advice, here's a specific piece of advice. Have a book club based on the goal. Okay, I've done this in a number of places. It's wonderful. So you get a team of execs, and we're going to read the goal, a couple of chapters every couple of weeks, and what did we learn in those 2 chapters? Let's go and try that in our organization. So as we work our way through the goal, we're all learning a common set of vocabulary and tools, and we're also trying these ideas out in the organization. Fun thing. And that is literally all of it. Not literally, but literally all of it, is visualize, stabilize, optimize. Again, John Smart, thank you, mentioned this earlier on. This is a cycle. Okay, visualize is, I describe it as visualize is the important bit, right? Turn the lights on, measure where you are. This is value stream mapping, event storming, right? Really simple, lightweight. If you're visualizing with more than post-its, you're probably overthinking it, okay? So visualize, really important. Let's see where we are. Stabilize is the boring but necessary bit. Right? If we've got massive variance in a process, we can't tell what's happening when we twiddle the knobs. Okay? So we need to stabilize things. Even if we're really, really bad at stuff, we want to be consistently really, really bad at stuff. Once we're consistently really, really bad at stuff, then we get to do optimize, which is the fun bit. But then the risk here is you just go optimize, 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 twiddle, 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 and we're going, is that helping? I don't know, twiddle, twiddle, twiddle. Why don't you stop twiddling? This is so much fun, twiddle, twiddle, twiddle. Look, I moved all those people over there, and now I moved them all back again. It's epic. Okay, so we want cycles of visualize, stabilize, optimize. Start small. Get data. Right? Mark Andreessen, Netscape founder, says, if all we've got is opinions, let's go with mine. Yeah. Right? So bring data. Okay, start small, measure. Right? As Barry was saying earlier, and Dave Farley in his talk this morning, brilliant, lovely talk. Enormous amount of information packed into a tiny period of time. Learn from your mistakes, okay? Learn from your mistakes, iterate. This is the scientific method. Make a statement, falsify the statement, disprove it. Brilliant, I just learned that this thing was wrong. The way in which it's wrong helps me steer, okay? So, then, summing up. Don't be fooled. Don't be fooled by beautifully crafted posters and people telling you that this is the one true way, except it's the one true way version 4.6, because the previous ones weren't the one true way. But this is. Oh, you're going to need to recertify. Anyway, this is the one true way until version 5, which is brilliant, and version 4.6 was rubbish. Shouldn't have used that. Don't know why anyone was using that. 4.6 is just an arbitrary number. Okay, it doesn't refer to anything. Don't be fooled, okay? But be aware, you can't defeat the universe. Things will atrophy, things will decay, things will degrade. Okay, time will pass, okay? So we can embrace that, right? Rather than trying to resist it, we can embrace that. And I was talking to Catherine about this, and she came up with just this wonderful, wonderful quote. And I stopped her. I said, stop, I'm going to write this down verbatim because I want to share it with people. And what she said is this. She said, mastery is understanding how to work with the grain. This means adapting, iterating, combining techniques for your context and the changes around you. Okay? So again, I'm not saying these scaling methods, these formal methods, your safes and lessons and whatever, they're not bad. They're just at best a useful starting data point. That's all they can be. What I really think they are is a bunch of toolboxes, and we can go and raid those toolboxes for some interesting tools. But we'll apply those tools in our context to figure out what's going to be useful to us. There's no magic formula, but there is hope. Okay, we can. And what does it mean? It means we just need to learn our way out of it, okay? Education, time, practice, all of those things. That's what we're going after. So, thank you very much.